Okay, picking up where we left off at. We had 1 and negative 16 gave us negative 15, 2 and negative 8 gave us negative 6, and 4 and negative 4 gave us 0. Okay, now we were trying to find what b is, which is negative 6. Okay, so now we substitute in 2 and negative 8. So we add x squared plus 2x minus 8x minus 16. We group the first two values. We can factor out an x, and we will have x plus 2. We group the second two values, it's negative 8x and minus 16. We can factor out a negative 8, and we will be left with x plus 2. Now, if you notice here, we have the two matching parentheses, so we can write one of those, and then everything on the outside, which is x minus 8, and we're done. Okay, now we go to example 6. We list our A, B, and C. I'm going to list it up here to provide more room. A is 1, B is 2, and C is negative 24. Okay, so now we would take our A times C, which is 1 times a negative 24, which we know is a negative 24. Okay, so now we're going to take the factors of negative 24. First, we'll do it as a positive 24. So we have 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. Now we have to determine which one of these numbers is going to be negative and which is going to stay positive. So our C is negative, but our B is positive. That means that the smaller number will be negative. Now when we add these numbers together, this will be 23, 10, 5, and 2. So B is 2, so we want to use negative 4 and 6. So we will have x squared minus 4x plus 6x minus 24. We group the first two terms here. We can factor out an x, and we'll be left with x minus 4. We group the second two terms here. And we have positive 6x minus 24. We can factor out a positive 6, and we'll be left with x minus 4. Now, our final answer, we have x minus 4 and x plus 6. And we're done. Now we go here to example 7 where it says factor. Now we can list our A, B, and C. A is 1, B is negative 7, and C is 12. So we multiply A and C. I'm going to write that over here, which will give us 1 times 12, which is 12. So we do the factors of 12, which is 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. Now since our A and C multiplied is positive, but our B is negative, that lets us know that the larger numbers is going to be negative. I have to provide myself a little bit more space in the next few problems. So now 1 and negative 12, we know would give us a negative 11. 2 and negative 6 will give us a negative 4. And 3 and negative 4 will give us a negative 1. So we're trying to find, oh, you know what? No, I'm sorry. These are supposed to be, both are supposed to be negative. So that was a mistake on my part. So negative 1 and negative 12 will give you a negative 13. And then negative 6, negative 2 and negative 6 will give us a negative 8. And negative 3 and negative 4 will give us a negative 7. So we want to use negative 7. So we will have x squared minus 3x minus 4x plus 12. Now just recapping this, when you multiply together the A and C and get a positive 12, but B is negative, that means that both of your factors are supposed to be negative. So I made that mistake earlier, so I corrected it. Okay, so now we group the first two values. We can factor out an x, and we'll be left with x minus 3. We group the second two values. Since that first term is negative, whatever we factor out must be negative. So this will be negative 4, and we'll be left with x minus 3. So we will have x minus 4 times x minus 3. And that is it. Okay, now we go over here to B. Okay, now B. We have our A, B, and C. A is 1, B is 3, and C is negative 18. Now we multiply A times C, which we know would be 1 times negative 18, which is negative 18. Now we find the factors of negative 18, so we do 18 first. So it'd be 1 and 18, 2 and 9, and 3 and 6. Now, since our A times C is negative, but our B is positive, that just means that the lower numbers will be negative. So this will give us 17, this will give us 7, and this will give us 3. So we want to use the negative 3 and 6. So we add x squared minus 3x plus 6x minus 18. We group the first two terms. We can factor out an x, and we add x minus 3. We group the second two terms. We can factor out a positive 6, and we add x minus 3. So in one of our parentheses, we have x plus 6, and in the other parenthesis, we add x minus 3. Okay, now we go down here to C. Now, if you notice here, we have two different variables here instead of just having one variable throughout the problem. But we still would do this first. We would do it alphabetically. P would be by itself squared. Then you would put P with Q, and then Q squared by itself. This is the proper order it's supposed to be in. So we list our A, B, and C. A is 1, B is 7, and C is 10. Now we multiply our A times C, which would be 1 times 10, which is 10. Okay, so now we take the factors of 10, which is 1 and 10, and 2 and 5. And since everything is positive, we could just add them together. So we got 11 and 7. We were trying to get 7 for B, so we'll substitute. So we would have P squared plus 2PQ plus 5PQ plus 10Q squared. Now we group the first two values. We can factor out a P, and we have P plus 2Q. Then we'll take these second two terms here, and we can factor out a 5Q, a positive 5Q, and we have P plus 2Q. So now we will have in one parenthesis P plus 5Q, and then P plus 2Q. And that's it. Now we go here to D. It's the same setup. We have our A, which is 1, our B is negative 4, and our C is negative 32. Now we multiply our A and C. That will give us 1 times the negative 32, which we know is negative 32. So we'll do the factors of a positive 32, which is 1 times 32, 2 times 16, 4 times 8, and let's see, 6, 7. I believe that is it. Okay, now what we have here is when we multiply, we got a negative, and B is also negative. That means that the higher numbers will be negative. And when we add them together, this is negative 31, this is negative 14, and this here is negative 4. So we were looking for negative 4 from our B here. So now we substitute. We have x squared plus 4xy minus 8xy minus 32y squared. Okay, so now we group these first two terms. We can factor out an x. And we'll be left with x plus 4y. Now we group the second two terms here, which is negative 8xy minus 32y squared. Now remember, since this first term is negative, we know whatever we factor out here must be negative. So negative 8 and 32 has a minus 8 in common, or negative 8. And then we could factor out a y as well. And in our parenthesis, we'll just be left with x plus 4y. I ran out of space here, but you all can see this is x plus 4y. Now, in one of my parentheses, I have x minus 8y. In the other parenthesis, I have x plus 4y. And that is the final answer here. Okay, now we're going to scroll down to the last two questions of this exercise. Now, this is very, very important, E and F. Now, this brings on another dimension for us with these problems. Okay, now, the first thing we're supposed to do is make sure that this expression is organized correctly, which it is. The second thing we're supposed to do is to see if all three of these terms have something in common, which we do. We have 5. So we factor out a 5, and then what's left would be t squared plus 3t minus 10. Now, after we factor out this 5, we want to see what we could do with what's inside this parenthesis. We do not do anything else with this 5 until the end of the problem. So our A here would be 1, our B is 3, and our C is negative 10. Okay, now, we know we multiply our A and C. A times C, we know we will have 1 times negative 10, which is negative 10. Now we need to find the factors. Now this had jumped, but you can rewind this. Remember, it's A and C is equal to 1 times a negative 10, which equals to a negative 10. Now we want to find the factors of negative 10, but we're going to start off by doing 10. So it'd be 1 and 10, 2 and 5. And since when we multiplied our A and C is negative and our B is positive, that means that the lower numbers are negative. So this would give us 9, this would give us 3. So we'll use the negative 2 and 5. So we add t squared plus 5t minus 2t this keeps jumping, minus 10. Now we group the first two terms. We can factor out a t, and we add t plus 5. The second two terms, we'll end up having to factor out a negative 2 or a minus 2. And that will leave us in parentheses t plus 5. When we have our two matching parentheses, we add t minus 2 and also t plus 5. And that's it. Now if you notice here, what I did was, well, remember this was t minus 2, t plus 5. And also I forgot to bring down this 5. You have to bring down the 5 at the end. Okay, so if you notice what I did here was this here. Instead of writing it in the order that you see here, negative 2 and 5, I wrote the 5 first and the minus 2 second. It doesn't matter, it still will give you the same answer. So it's 5 times t minus 2 times t plus 5, and that's it. Okay, now we come to F. First thing we notice is it's not in the proper order, so we must write it in its proper order. So the 3x cubed will go first. Well, first let me separate this.